who you go in business with is probably more important than who you marry. I've sat down with a lot of founders now where they've probably spent more time demoing new products than they have like making sales calls. That's the problem that we are dead set on trying to solve in the recruitment industry. And by far the biggest skill gap is that the sales side. Over half of recruiters would probably say that the sales and business development side is the hardest part. I see this time and time again because we also have like a growing community of solo founders. I know when I worked in recruitment, it was just like learning on the job, doing the reps, failing forward. There was no sales strategy. The best leaders have done the hard work and understanding that on an individual basis, and then they use that. But things like everyone needs a destination, like do the people in your team really know like where they're going? Are they doing enough input to really warrant the results that they want? Probably not. There's a lot that goes into that, and sometimes that means putting your best earner, your top performer in check, or even letting those people go.
Before we get started with the episode, our books are now open.
If you need help getting in front of the right people, finding your dream customers, or winning new business, we might be able to help.
Why not outsource your sales to We Have a Meeting? Just go to wehaveameeting.com.
Hishem, welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here.
It's great to have you. You've got that cheeky glint in your eye today. We're looking forward to it. We're going to hit you with a big question, Hishem. Who are you and what problem do you solve?
Name is Hishem Azzouz. Main problem that I solve is the training performance problem, inconsistency problem that comes with the recruitment industry. So you guys all know recruitment is very similar to sales, and we've all heard this saying, you're only as good as your last month. And I think for a lot of recruiters out there, there's a lot of months that aren't that great. So we're trying to help growing recruitment companies fix that inconsistent performance problem by giving them great training, great resources that are all delivered by current top performing recruiters. And that's the problem that we are dead set on trying to solve in the recruitment industry.
Nice. So I know that this episode today is going to be a masterclass in working in recruitment, setting up your own recruitment agency. I know that there are many recruiters out there that have a photo of you on their wall, a big poster. I guess the question is, why should they listen to you when it comes to all things recruitment?
Yeah, I always like to sort of preface when I do any sort of talks or anything like this where I'm in a really unique position and sort of say, honestly, that I'm speaking here from never setting up a recruitment agency, but I'm in this really unique position where now up until this point, I've probably spent nearly 1,000 hours with recruiters or recruitment entrepreneurs in really dissecting how they've achieved what they've achieved. So I'm really uniquely placed to, I guess, draw the similarities, draw the principles, see what the golden threads are. So today, that's where I like to talk from, is like I see a lot of things that people do. There's a lot of things that people do the same. There's a lot of people things do differently. And that's where I'm talking from. So you should listen to me because there's not many people that have spent that amount of hours really focused on understanding how they've achieved what they've achieved so others can learn from it.
Nice. So I want to go in kind of timeline order as much as we can. So let's imagine we've got someone who's senior recruiter and they're thinking, I think it's time for me to set up on my own. And thousands of recruitment agencies probably pop up every year, not many of them succeeding. So what do you think is the difference between the people who set up and succeed and the people who set up and fail?
So these sort of things probably are universal, but I do see them show up a lot. So I think the first thing is being really clear on what you want. I sit down with so many founders who say things like, I think I should hire, or do you think I should grow, or maybe I should do this. And a lot of this confusion, hesitation, just overall not a huge amount of confidence in what they should do next comes from not being clear on actually what they want. And I think in today's world as well, particularly LinkedIn, because that's where a lot of recruiters are going to live, comparison is a real thing. I think we can all relate to that. But when you're in the trenches doing the job and you're seeing that your competitors supposedly are smashing it and you're not, that's really hard. And you can often find yourself thinking, what are they doing that I'm not doing? Am I missing something? So I think the first thing, really important thing, is to be really clear on what is it that you want? What type of business do you want? Do you want it to be a business where you earn good money, your revenue is predictable, you work with great customers, and you don't grow a team and you're fine with that and you're happy with that? Or is it actually you want to grow a business? You really like the idea of building something big or whatever big means to you. So I think the first thing is being really clear on what you want. Then onto that is, I would say, really don't be naive with who you start a business with. If you're going out to start a recruitment business on your own, cool, you've got a lot less things to think about there. But I've met a lot of people who start a business with someone else and it doesn't work out. And I think a lot of people can go into these things in a sort of naive frame of mind. I know I've definitely experienced that. I raised a smaller investment for my business, and like I was just so naive in that. I was very quick to give equity away, and you have to learn these things. The reason why I bring that up is I'm just a huge believer that who you go in business with is probably more important than who you marry, in my personal view, just because you're going to spend a lot of time with that person, and you're going to have to be willing to ask the difficult questions, be willing to both look at each other and maybe be honest and say, actually, I don't know if I'm enjoying this anymore, or I want this for the business, and does that match up with you? So if you're starting a recruitment business with another person, like just do your due diligence and don't go into that naively. I've met so many people that have worked with someone for 18 months and then they start a business with them. And then I hear the back end of that behind the scenes of like, it was terrible, it was hard. If you're going out on your own, that comes with its own challenges, but then it's about being self-aware. I'm just a huge believer that the entrepreneurial journey, definitely my experience, is it's one of the probably the biggest journey when it comes to self-development and personal development. I was at a dinner the other day with a bunch of founders, and someone said that it really resonated with me, which was like, going on that entrepreneurial journey is just basically really ending up holding a mirror up to yourself, and it brings out all your insecurities. And I think, going on an entrepreneurial journey on your own is hard. So you have to be self-aware and really be willing to go, I'm really great at this. What am I not so good at? And have those difficult conversations with yourself, because you're probably going to run into a lot of trouble if you can't sort of diagnose those things yourself. So I think be really clear on what you want. If you're going into business on your own, think about those things. If you're going into business with someone else, definitely do the extra due diligence on the people that you're going to business with. I'd probably start there. I'd say there, I don't know if you expect me to go there, but I'd say that's like quite universal. But if you get those foundational bits right, I think you're going to give yourself way more of a better chance of succeeding in the long run. I'm sure you guys can relate to this, but I've been on this entrepreneurial journey for like 5 and a bit years now, and it's hard. So I would probably say it has to start there before we get into the tactics of recruitment, all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's more of a power in, I'm going to be super hyper niche, or do you think the generalist is winning more now? What are you saying?
So I'd say out of the I've done over 600 podcast episodes now. I'd say like 99% of them are like niche recruiters, or that's how they define themselves. So if we're talking like more strategy, then I think for people actually considering taking the leap, you're going to make it a lot more harder for yourself if you're going into a market that you've never done before. So a lot of great recruiters, you gave me the example of a senior recruiter. I'm assuming that they've worked in a particular market for a while or a certain industry. That should mean if you're good, that when you go out on your own, there's going to be people that want to work with you. I think that is always a thing that does play out in recruitment. If you're good, is that people follow the relationship. They work with Zach, the recruiter, but Zach, the recruiter, works with, we have a meeting recruitment agency, but it's actually Zach that they really enjoy working with, and it's Zach who has the relationship with them. So I think if you're starting out strategy-wise, I think it's going to be extremely hard, or you're going to make it harder for yourself if you're going into a brand new market that you haven't done before. So normally, I think the best bet is going to be staying in the industry and the ecosystem that you've been part of for however many years, because from day one, even though you may have sort of restrictions on who you can reach out to and the people that you can interact with and work with, you're going to have that subject matter expertise. So I haven't sat down with many generalists. I do think in today's world, I just think having that subject matter expertise, knowledge is power, is big in recruitment. Like having the insights, being able to educate consultants, say, hey, Zach, you know that you said that you want to be paying this person this much. I really think that's probably nowhere near competitive, or your interview process is not very good. This is why. Like all of that comes from really being in the detail with the same sorts of companies, the same sorts of people. So I'd probably say, for the most part, most people I've met with, niche subject matter expertise is going to be the right play for the most part.
I don't know loads and loads about recruitment, but from friends in the industry and a few people that I've seen, it feels like an old like 90s Nintendo video game, doesn't it? Where you like step up, okay, I've got my own desk, then I've got my own floor or whatever. and then the final boss is I'm going to go away and set up my own agency. You were talking there about like the situation where there are probably like rules on what you can and can't do, but like staying in that area. If somebody's thinking about setting up their own agency, have you got any examples of how you can be super smart where you're maybe like not treading on the toes of your ex-employee?
For me, my advice always is like play it with a straight bat. Like I think there is some people are more than happy not to do that, but like for me morally, I don't know. I feel like it'd be a lot easier just to be building a business, doing business, not looking over your shoulder and like waiting for maybe something bad to happen or a legal letter to come through. Or if when those legal letters do come through, which they will, you know you haven't done anything. So in terms of being smart, I think the smartest thing that you can do is I've spoken to a lot of people. I've heard some horror stories, but for the most part, if you are really worried about that, then it wouldn't be a bad idea to like get your like contract professionally looked at. Because I've sat down with a lot of people who have built a platform, built a business where they help Jack the recruiter start his own recruitment business. And there's a lot of stuff that recruitment agencies put in contracts that just aren't enforceable. But I wouldn't assume that if you are worried about it, I don't think it'd be a bad investment to get it professionally looked at. So then from day one, you know, right, if I do this and I stick to this, when the legal stuff comes through, a lot of the time there will be businesses that are genuinely trying to protect their business. However, when I've spoken to people a lot of the time, they just know how that will affect that person. So, because I think one of the things that I don't like is when someone's worked at a recruitment business or a business for a long time and they put a lot of energy, time, just so much into helping grow that business and they decide to leave and it just gets really emotional and it gets nasty. I just don't like that personally. I understand it from a business owner perspective. It can be emotional. You've invested a lot of time, money into these people and then they leave. But I think for the most part, these things play out. And if I'm going to be really horrible to Jack, who's been at my company for 5 years, and then I'm going to send loads of legal letters, I don't know. I just don't like that. But to answer your question, I'll just get some professional advice on it if you are concerned about it. But I'd probably opt to like play it with a safe bet. Approach it in the right way, morally. And then just understand legally what they could actually enforce or not. I think it could be quite personal. I'm probably more morally like play the long game, do the right thing.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant advice. So then I want to talk about like business development because I think that from our background and we've done some bits together. So I guess when you're sitting down with recruiters, what's the percentage split of like you're amazing at recruitment, but you're also amazing at business development?
Yeah, we've got an interesting lens on this, one from the podcast, but then with the training business, we're trying to close skill gaps. Like I said, fix those inconsistencies. And by far the biggest skill gap is that the sales side. So I'd probably say it's not 50-50. I'd probably say like it's over half of recruiters would probably say that the sales and business development side is the hardest part. I think bring this back to like starting a recruitment agency, I see this time and time again because we also have like a growing community of solo founders. So like they're just solo operators or very small businesses. Like that is often the biggest problem that they want help with is like just really being consistent and building their pipeline, the sales side. And I do think it's probably the most important skill that you want to keep sharpening throughout your recruitment career. So the truth of it is there's a lot of people in our industry that would probably agree and say like that's their weakest part. There's a lot that goes into that. We can go into that if you want, but like that is quite multifaceted, I'd say.
Take us there.
So we've done some different stuff together. Recent thing being helping recruiters conduct discovery. I think you guys are quite surprised to hear the amount of recruiters that don't conduct discovery. So I think the first part is there is definitely some responsibility here on the company in terms of a lot of recruitment agencies. If you were to say, what's your sales strategy? I don't know how many recruitment agencies, if you were to line up 100, would say, like with conviction, this is our sales strategy. So I think that is part of it. Like, is there a playbook that recruiters are given? Do they know how to position themselves? Do they know what problems they're solving? Like, are they given a sales process that they can work to? A lot of recruiters aren't. So I think a lot of it actually can stem from the environment that people end up in. I know when I worked in recruitment, it was just like learning on the job, doing the reps, failing forward. there was no sales strategy. So I think that a lot of it can stem from there. And then it depends on what environment you find yourself in, but businesses are set up in different ways where you can have, I don't know if you guys have heard the term like 360 recruitment. That essentially means that you cover the recruitment process from start to finish, where you're out there winning clients, you're winning the vacancies, you're winning the client partnerships, and then you're working with those clients to then deliver on the vacancies, the jobs that you're working on with them. So you would then go to market, speak to talent, present that talent, like do the whole process. But then there's a lot of companies where they've split out the sales function and the delivery function. So that also might be why, like there's a lot that goes into it, if I'm honest. But I do think a lot of it stems from, like I got no like sales development, or I had to find that all myself. That's where the podcast came from me, where that idea came from. I was that person that needed that help or wanted that help. I was just sick of like just failing forward and just trying to figure it out directly in front of prospects. Like I was like, surely there's other people that I can learn from. So I think there's a lot that goes into it, but for sure, the sales skill is the biggest skill that people want to keep developing, or would say it's not their strongest.
Where do you think people are going wrong then from the stuff that you hear?
Like strategy aside, just final note on that. Like I've sat down with a lot of people this year who have realized their team can't confidently articulate their value proposition. That's a pretty big problem when it comes to sales. If they're not confident that when Jack the recruiter gets in front of prospective business, that he's saying something completely different that doesn't quite match up with why companies should be working with them. So like just those things aside, where people are sort of going wrong, like honestly, I don't know if you guys are running into this, but a lot of people go in search of like silver bullets and like shortcuts. And in today's world, there's just so, like I've sat down with a lot of founders now where they've probably spent more time demoing new products than they have like making sales calls. And that's easily done when you're a founder. Like the distraction piece is a real thing. That's something that I'm always working on, if I'm honest. Like it's so easy not to do the thing, even though you know what you need to do. So I'd say that is a big part. And downstream from that is then it means that they probably don't do things for a consistent, sustained period to really see the results. So they always maybe, you know, do things for a couple of days. Are like, oh, this isn't working, I'm going to do this instead. And they never quite get that sort of operational rhythm on the things that really matter, that are going to have the impact in the long term. So I think when you become a founder, I hear this time and time again, when you're employed, one of the things that you might hate is your managers just really being on you, holding you accountable, telling you what you need to do, your inputs, having that all dialed. But then when you go out on your own, you haven't got that manager over your neck. And that is hard for a lot of people, because you then have to hold yourself accountable. And really the people that I've met who have built a successful agency or gone out on their own, they've just done the boring things consistently every single day that they know work. That is just the truth of it. So they're doing the non-negotiables every single day, and they're not doing the things that they feel like, yeah, this is good use of my time and it's the right thing to do, but really it's just a distraction and it's just getting away from doing the thing.
We are entering a new era of outbound.
4 years in, We Have a Meeting has leveled up our entire offer. That's why multi-billion-pound brands trust us.
And we book meetings with Netflix, Spotify, Facebook, even Barcelona Football Club.
We've helped close deals up to 950,000.
We're doing it all. Phone, LinkedIn, email, direct mail. And there's a few weird and wonderful possibilities that we're keeping in our back pocket. So if you're struggling to get in front of the right people at the right time, inquire today.
Do you think there's things that people get wrong when it comes to volume? So underestimating the amount of things you have to do to get it going at the start?
Yeah, I think that goes into the consistency for sure. There's a lot that can go into that. I think there's, where my mind goes is, are people even approaching the right types of companies? Do they know they're the right types of companies that they know they can work with, have a good track record with? Are they spending all of their time like mapping out people they could call? Are they the right people? Like there's a lot that goes into that, but I do think a big part of that equation is, are they just doing enough reps? I think when you're out on your own, it is hard. I'm definitely guilty of this, like just not doing the things that I know I should be doing. So I think a big part of it is the consistency, probably even more so in today's world. I think the people that I've met that have done great numbers and have performed really well consistently are still doing the inputs and they're still doing the numbers. I do think that's just a big part of the equation. And if we're holding up a mirror to a lot of recruiters out there and we're being honest, are they doing enough input to really warrant the results that they want? Probably not.
You must have had conversations with either recruiters that have gone solo and failed, or recruiters who have started an agency, but it might be their second or third attempt that finally got going. So aside from the consistency and kind of the non-negotiables, where else do you see recruiters fail when it comes to setting up agencies?
Probably start with a personal note first. I'm just a huge believer that if you're performing outside of work, you have a great chance of performing inside of work. The reason why I bring that up is, again, like the entrepreneurial journey is hard. And if you're in a relationship and that goes absolutely terrible whilst you've got the business, that 100% is going to have an impact on how you're going to get on in that business journey, in my view anyway. Then health-wise as well, like if you just put all your eggs in the work basket, in the business basket, and then the rest of it just goes to shit, that is going to have a direct impact. So I think I just wanted to highlight that because I think that can often be overlooked. So I think that's the first piece. And I do really feel like if you work hard on having those things in at least like an average or a good position, maybe some weeks, some months they're in a really great position, your relationship with your partner or the relationship with, your health, and you're doing the right things that put you in a good frame of mind, I think that will have a big knock-on effect on just longevity and having a successful business. Because I'm definitely a huge believer that just the longer that you stay in the game, the more chance you have of winning the game that you're playing. So I think that can often be overlooked in my view, particularly in like the recruitment environment. I mean, now if you go onto LinkedIn, it's very different. Everyone is saying that you should stop drinking alcohol. I'm sure you run into those all the time, but it definitely has shifted. But I think I wanted to highlight that because I think that can be overlooked, and that is definitely going to have an impact on you succeeding, failing, or at least having longevity in running a successful recruitment agency. When it comes to other stuff that comes to mind in terms of failing or succeeding, I'd probably say a pretty big factor is like what market you recruit in. I think sometimes there's a lot of people out there who will feel like the market that I'm in is terrible and that market over there is going to be perfect. See, that just isn't the case. The grass is always going to seem greener. But I think a big thing that I consistently see now is there's just so many more UK recruitment agencies that just serve the US market. That's been like a really big shift. So I think that's something to be mindful of, like what market you're in. Is your market just contracting and it's just been like that for a long time? You've got the market expertise. Like sometimes you have to be agile and you have to make those bets. And that's something you've got to be mindful of, because it might be really challenging to achieve the things that you want to in the market that you're in. Like there might be a ceiling there. It's important to be mindful of that, because if you do all of the things that we've spoken about, consistent, you've got the sales piece right, all the other bits that go into being successful at recruitment, and you're in an environment, you're in an ecosystem, you're in an industry where it's growing and those things match up, you can guarantee you that world is going to feel a bit more easier. So it is important to be mindful of that. The other thing I think then comes down to like failing or succeeding. I don't know if you guys I think we may have discussed it in one of our prep calls, but for those of you that work in recruitment, very typical terminology would be like contingent. So if we have a meeting, you pay me, the recruiter, when I've placed a salesperson into your business. So ultimately working for free until I get you that person. As you can imagine, that comes with some inconsistencies, and that can be quite hard to predict. We've got these jobs, how many are we actually going to fill? So then when we get into like cash flow forecasting, that's going to be quite difficult. If you're not confident, that just is difficult. So I think succeeding, failing, recruitment agencies then are thinking about productizing their service. They might work with their companies on an exclusive basis, which means there's just more commitment. We have a meeting is only going to give me their sales jobs, no other recruiter. I know then that you guys are committed. I know that I'm not going to be coming up against 3-4 other agencies every time I'm going out there to the market. Or maybe you might pay me a deposit to work on this position or positions. That's real financial commitment. And then when I then get these people or team for you guys, you then pay me on contract being signed or those people starting. So I bring that up because like what can be really hard is just that volatility of we've just had a really good month this month, we don't know where we're going to land. So that is a lot of the time that failing or succeeding, because there's a lot of recruitment businesses that don't manage their cash flow right. You were a recruiter, you wasn't a business owner, so you might get limited exposure to cash flow, like managing the money, those types of things. So that is also going to play a big factor in how you actually work with your customers. So yeah, I think don't overlook like your personal world, you as an actual person. There's more to it than work. How are your relationships? How's your health? These types of things. Not overlooking that. Definitely thinking about your market. Are you in a market that's contracting? Are you in a market that's growing? Is there something maybe there where you could be even more niche in the particular market, or can you be a bit agile that could maybe help you get some of those wins that you're looking for? And then definitely like thinking about how can you get more consistency, and that might be how you operate, how you transact with your clients, which means you can be more confident in your projections, which means you know where to spend your money, when not to spend your money. Those things might help.
Loads of good stuff in there. I think jokes aside, recruiters get a bad reputation, don't they? Like, and I think definitely probably like 10 years ago, even worse so, for being maybe a bit of Jack the Lad, that kind of thing. So I think that when you're going out on your own, and obviously just because you're a good recruiter, it doesn't mean that you're going to be a good agency owner. When you're going out on your own, what are some of the things that you can do to maybe break the perception when it comes to being a bit different, zigging when other people are zagging? How do you get rid of that kind of classic recruiter mentality?
Yeah, I mean that those people still very much exist for sure. But I probably see things through rose tinted glasses. Like, again, morally, I'm probably someone that's inclined to like see the good in people. But the amount of time that I spend with people, of course, there are going to be people that cut corners, these types of things. But I think for the most part, people that I sat down with, they do genuinely want to do a really good job. So I think how to be different, honestly, it is going to be like the boring stuff. And what I mean by that is doing what you say you're going to do, really actually leaning into like, it's an overused word, like authenticity, but I think in today's world, it's something that really can give you an edge, and like leaning into that, not trying to lean into, I need to be perceived by Jack in this certain way. If I'm a recruiter, actually just leaning into like who you are, what you're about. And I do see that a lot when people leave an agency and then start on their own. Something I always notice is almost like the sort of shackles have been taken off. They're sharing way more content. They're maybe being way more personable. They might say things a bit different on their sales calls if I was to listen to them. And that's because they're leaning into being themselves and what they're about and owning that, versus maybe putting a bit of a mask on when they're employed and working for a recruitment agency, because they maybe didn't create the space for Jack to really be his true self and be about that. So I think the zig and zagging actually is more about just doing the basics really well, doing the things that you say you're going to, like, hey Jack, fair, I've caught you at a bad time, I'll call you at 12 p.m. tomorrow. Yeah, sure, no worries. And actually making that call. And then it's like really then the basics on like doing just great recruitment pieces, like giving people feedback, really thinking about the experience, like being like willing to be honest and go, you know what, Jack, you've just said that this is really important to you, but your salary is way too low. Like being willing to push people back and own that, not being subservient, like all those good things. And then definitely leaning into like being yourself. Like people will follow the recruiter because they enjoy working with that person and what they bring. Like I think you should really lean into that versus suppress that. And I think sometimes people, when they have been employed, that's suppressed for whatever reason. So when you go out on your own, really lean into that. And I think that can give you the edge in the market.
Nice. There's a lot of the early success feels like it's about getting the right team in place and the right incentives in place. What have you learned from people who get their own internal hiring right, their own internal incentives and motivators right?
Yeah, this is something that I'm always thinking about, if I'm honest, because I think I can do a better job with my team. So something that I see time and time again, and it's really kicked me into action, is I think the best teams, the leaders of those teams, have really done the hard work on getting clarity on where the hell they're going. And I think the companies that maybe struggle to attract or retain their best people may not have that clarity, or like the people in those organizations or teams wouldn't say that, yeah, I know exactly how I fit into this vision and how I fit into this journey. So there's a few things that I picked up over, like this year, if I'm honest, where just quotes have probably been picked up in all different places, but things like everyone needs a destination. Like, do people in your team really know like where they're going, and does that match up with like what they care about, what's important to them? I think the other one as well is around, is your vision big enough as a leader, as a team, as an organization, for it to fit other people's visions and dreams in? So I think that's the first piece on the team part, is they're very able to clearly articulate, this is where we are today, this is where we're going, and this is how you can be part of that. And this is how you fit into that, if you want to be part of that. Then the next part is protecting that at all costs. I'm sure you guys can relate to this on your business journey. I've definitely had to work through this, and that is, when I come through the door for you guys, you say, this is what we're about, this is what we stand for, this is what's important to us. But then I get into, do we have a meeting, work environment, and that doesn't quite match up. You said you really care about accountability, but I can see all these people pointing a finger at all these other people, but apparently that you're just letting that slide. So I think having that clarity on vision, but then that filters down from that as your standards and these types of things, and then protecting that at all costs. And I think the longer that you let that go on, then that becomes the new culture, right? So I think those leaders are willing to really protect those standards at all costs. And sometimes that means putting your best earner, your top performer in check, or even letting those people go if they're breaking those standards. I'd probably say they're the big things on like attracting and retaining. When it then comes to like driving performance, it's all the bits that we've spoken about, like having a clear strategy, setting the standards, having non-negotiables, like all those bits, if I'm honest, is then that filters down into it. But I think that the common thread is vision, real clarity, conviction on it, and protecting those standards at all costs. And then really, like, it's easy to say this is where we're going, what we're doing, what we're about. But then when you've got like a really high earner or someone that's got a really great track record that maybe doesn't tick all the boxes, are you going to be disciplined enough to go, you know what, Jack, this isn't right for you, even though when you know that they could add 300, 400, 500 grand to your bottom line?
Yeah, I think that's a powerful piece to be able to do that, to kind of push people away because they might be the right performer but not right for the culture.
Easier said than done.
Yeah, massively.
And we've all heard it before, but it is, yeah, we've heard all these things before because it's true.
Yeah, definitely. What about the incentives business?
Incentives, yeah, you said.
Recruitment's a bit mad for incentives and lunch clubs and Ibiza trips and stuff.
I think it is famous for those things. I'm sure sales is as well. You've got the President's Club and those types of things. But I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because it's something that I see quite a lot when on the surface, the recruitment leader will say, we've got a sales problem or we've got a business development problem. I'm then always curious around, do the incentives match up with these people doing the behaviors that you want to see more of? And sometimes they don't. So when you say incentives to me, yes, you have all those things, having these quarterly trips, high performer trips. But I think when I think about it in high performing teams, I think the incentives absolutely match up with like the core behaviors and non-negotiables and what that leader said is important for those team and for those people to do. And sometimes that can be missed. And what I mean by that, a bit of an example is a leader might say to me, yeah, they're not doing as much business development I'd like them to, but then I might learn that some of their best performers have got like accounts that they've developed over like years and years. They're earning really good money and they're absolutely fine just earning that money, and really the incentive isn't there for them to go out and win new clients or new relationships because they know what they can earn over here. Then it's like, hang on a minute, if we really want to incentivize this because you want to protect the amount of clients you're working with, diversify, whatever, like, should we not maybe think about incentivizing what people get for doing those behaviors and winning net new clients? Should it actually be more incentivized versus I can earn just as much or be as the same if I just stay with my existing clients and I stay complacent? So a bit of an example there, but I do think it's, when I think incentives, it's like you're saying that they're not doing this sort of behavior. Well, actually, do the incentives match up with that? That's how I think about it, because it doesn't always match up.
Our book is out now. Sales is Therapy is available everywhere for people who are looking to get better at communicating,
asking better questions, closing more deals, and bringing in more clients.
Beware, it is not for the faint of heart or for closed-minded people.
You can buy it in all good shops, links below. I want to get your take on this and see what, because you've been around in the industry to kind of know how it actually swims. So I got offered exclusivity to, they wanted us to work with a recruitment company. But I think part of that like conversation that was going on was like, here's some tickets to a box at Manchester United, and I don't really care about football. It feels like recruiters, one of their kind of like party tricks is the relationship builder of let me give you something, let me show you what we can do for you. What's your take on when it comes to like building relationships? How can you do it effectively without maybe bribery?
Or did that not make you want to work with them then?
Manchester United? No, thanks. I'm a Scunthorpe fan.
This is something that I do, if I'm honest, like I do think about, because it is very overused, like build relationships. Like what does that actually mean? I haven't like proper operationalized that, if I'm honest. It is something that I've thought about. What does that actually mean? I think it might mean when Jack needs something or needs advice when it comes to recruitment, or when the problem has got bad enough that he needs help, I'm the person that he calls. Or maybe we're texting on WhatsApp, maybe that's what relationship is. Or maybe we've spent, a good amount of FaceTime with each other. I honestly, I don't know, if I'm honest, but I don't think you can accelerate that relationship building by doing what you said. So I think it's just about building those relationships, just building progress and small bits of progress over time throughout the whole experience of maybe working together or getting to that point where, again, it comes back to me and you have a conversation. I tell you what I'm about. You say, you know what, actually, I'll be honest, we've worked with a lot of recruiters. They've always let me down. I pick that up. I listen to that. And then I really make sure then when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. You give me an opportunity, I make sure I deliver on that. I think it's all in those just small moments that all add up over time that really build that relationship. I think what can accelerate it in today's world is just being willing to really try and get as much FaceTime as possible. I do believe that. I don't know what you guys think about that, but we could absolutely be doing this conversation online, but we've all made a commitment. Like we've all got here today. It's hot in this room and we're here, we're having a chat. And I definitely think that in recruitment specific, that's definitely something that is probably being lost. Like you said earlier around recruitment being quite old school. I almost think like with AI and technology, I think that old school can really give people a lot of edges. I've spoke to a lot of people where they've asked directly the companies they've worked with, the other recruiters that you spent X amount with, how many of them have you met? And a lot of the time the answer to that is, I've never actually met Jack the recruiter, even though we spent 6 figures with him last year. So that isn't a silver bullet, but I think if I get in front of Jack, the hiring manager, I learn a bit more about you, what you're about. I learn that you don't, I just have more opportunity to learn more about you as a person, I think. And that's quite vague, but I do think those things add up and matter.
Well, let's. I've got a question for you, but I'll tell you a story first. So a recruiter rang me, and it was actually a couple of years ago, and said, "I'm desperate to can I come down to the office?" And they nagged, and I said, "Yeah, fine." And then I said, "Can I get you a coffee?" He said, "No, I don't drink coffee." And I said, "Well, we've got this machine, we've got other drinks." And he said, "I'll just have a glass of cold milk." And when he said, "Can I have a glass of cold milk?" I thought, "There's no way that I'm trusting you in my recruitment process, right?" So that's a side note, but. If someone's saying, and we get it all the time, can recruiters come and, if somebody wanted to come and meet Zach, I couldn't imagine Zach saying, "Yeah, come and meet me. I really want to spend half an hour with the recruiter." So the advice is...
That makes me sound like a bad person.
No, but do you want to spend 30 minutes with the recruiter?
I don't think it's recruiter that's the problem. With anyone.
Right, okay. So the bit is, I'm very busy. Is it worth it to spend 30 minutes with the recruiter? Maybe not. I get that you want to build a relationship, but there's businesses to run. So there's going to be so many busy entrepreneurs out there who are thinking, if I had 30 minutes for every recruiter, I'd have no time to drive the business forward. So for the people that are listening thinking, I want to drive face-to-face, how should they be going about that?
I think it comes down to how, like, I get what you're saying, but it's like how it's positioned. Because you will hear it everywhere. The biggest reason why you guys won't hit your goals is because you haven't got the best people or the right people in seat. So I do think how it's positioned, like if you truly believe in 30 minutes, you could meet someone that might actually be able to help you with this recruitment problem, or help, maybe help you understand how you can attract better salespeople. Or I've learned that you run assessment days, so I might share some things that I know other companies have done to get more out of their assessment days. Like, I think it's how it's positioned. And that's everything, right? Like, I do get that. You could say that about people over email saying, have you got 15 minutes for a quick call, whatever. So I think it is how you positioned it. That, again, that isn't easy. Like, that takes skill, and it comes back to that information piece again. Like, if I've done a good job of like getting context, getting information, which great recruiters will, I should probably be able to understand how can I position this 30 minutes for Jack where he's going to feel like he's going to walk away with stuff. Because I think if you sat down with a great recruiter in those 30 minutes, I'd like to think that you'd walk away and go, you know what, that was a good use of my time. What's going to make you think that is that they didn't just speak about themselves all the time and what they wanted. It was actually leaving you with, actually, there's some really useful bits in there that we could potentially apply to our business. Because what I always like to remind recruiters, like the position that I'm in, is I don't know how much time you guys spend speaking to other sales leaders that hire entry-level talent into sales roles. But I can guarantee you recruiters that just focus on that sales industry and work with organizations like yours probably speak to more than you guys do. So being a conduit of that information and going, you know what, Jack, I spoke to someone that worked at your business 2 years ago. They said that you run assessment centers. I've worked at loads of businesses that did this at their assessment center, and they massively got a better hit rate on the people that attended, the people that signed up versus attended. I don't know. Like, do you know what I mean? It's understanding what those things are. So I think it's about making it about them. It's about how you position it, I'd say. I don't think there's any silver bullet on that, if I'm honest. I don't know. Like, I think it's how you position it. How you actually do that, that's going to be hard to deliver in a nugget.
We interviewed a guy recently who immediately we were put off, and I want to get your thoughts on this. He tried to set up his own recruitment agency, and after about a year, he said, not for me, can I come and work for you guys instead? And just that experience of him going through it and not pulling it off probably put us off. Do you think we're wrong to think that?
It depends what more information that you got, and if you thought he was being truthful with the answers that he gave you.
Well, when I asked you at the top about the output required, right, to get recruitment going, we've got recruitment clients, and they're always shocked by like the amount of dials and conversations that have to happen to get a really qualified. You can meet with anyone, but to get a qualified person who's going to show up, they're always shocked. Like, it's maybe 150, 200 dials, 30, 40 conversations out of that, maybe 1-2 meetings if you're lucky. That feels like something that's quite overlooked.
That's just not happening.
It's just
for the most part, that input is not happening.
Yeah, but why?
There's not a simple answer to that. Like, there just isn't. I think there's a lot of other things that I could be doing that makes me feel like I could get to that end outcome that isn't doing the thing. Posting on LinkedIn, sending messages on LinkedIn. Like, there's loads of other things that I feel like I could be doing that isn't that.
But that doesn't. So, all right, well, we'll play devil's advocate on this, right? So I could schedule my LinkedIn posts, right? So I post them. I've got my selfies up there with me doing whatever, work hard, play hard. And then what do I do now for the rest of my day?
You're completely right. I think there's like limited things that you can control in recruitment, and one of them is how many calls you can make to prospective clients. So I think it is that a lot of people are distracted and just not doing the thing, or have convinced themselves that actually making all those calls isn't the best use of my time, but actually, for the most part, for most people, it probably is. I think then there's like genuinely, we're coming back to like the strategy piece. I'd like to think from getting to know you guys and learn a bit more about your business, if you hired me, I think I'd probably be equipped with why the companies work with We Have a Meeting, or at least I'd like to think I'd be able to articulate that. like what actually is like an ideal client for us. Like honestly, these things aren't standard for recruitment companies. So like you're saying, yeah, input just isn't there. And I'm sure you've run into this. Actually, if we look into it, it's because a good chunk of their team actually don't know why they're calling the people that they're calling. And they're not, that is a big part of being able to do that input. You can do that, but then you may feel unprepared. You may feel like I'm going to burn these opportunities. I don't know. I feel like it actually is taking a step back and actually understanding, why am I calling these people in the first place? Are they companies that I believe that we can help? Do they match up with the types of companies that we've had great success with in the past? Like all that stuff.
So then I suppose there's links to what you spotted in terms of getting training in front of people. Probably feels like recruitment has no clear kind of off-ramp straight in, like here's your recruitment training course. Here's why you're ringing this. Here's the psychology of someone who wants to move from job to job. Like there's none of that by the sound.
That's definitely lacking in the companies that have successfully scaled, whatever that means, or have had sustainable growth, whatever that means. They've taken those things seriously. But look, the companies I've spoken to that might be a work in progress, or it's not quite where they want it to be, or it may be non-existent. It's definitely overlooked in smaller companies. But then I am consistently surprised when we do a bit of an analysis when we're working with companies, how much of that like core go-to-market strategy isn't there. And that makes then doing those inputs hard. I mean, you can still do it. Like if you join an organization and they're quite well established, they're going to have loads of data that you can go at. Previous candidates that work with, previous clients that they work with, you could probably smash the inputs there. And honestly, the companies that have really grown successfully and have got like a quite core strategy of like entry-level talent, they're probably way more up there in the numbers and the inputs, because that's just going to be one of the best ways that these people can practice, can learn, is by doing the reps. So yeah, I think there's a few things there. But back to your failed recruitment founder person. I don't know. Honestly, like I'd actually, if I felt like they were being genuine and honest about why they think it failed and why I'm now sitting in front of you and want to work for you guys, I actually personally would quite like that story as a founder, but I don't know what this person said and if you felt like they're being truthful or not.
Well, tune in next week to find out.
I don't think that'd be massive. I think if I dug into it and I think they were being truthful, what I'd like about that is they've scratched that itch. They took a bet. They really tried to do it. It didn't work out. This is what I learned from it, Zach. This is the reason why I'm sitting in front of you today. I actually really understood. Actually, you know what? I want to work for an organization. I'm not cut out to do it on my own. It was actually really lonely. It was hard. I miss being part of a team. I feel like my learning stopped. I want to learn from you. Like, do you know what I mean? It depends if I felt like they're being honest or not.
They weren't. And they were misogynistic, weren't they?
Were they?
Yeah, very.
Right. I didn't hear that bit.
Yeah, I've got the recording. I'll show you after. It feels like we might enter like high ticket closing. It feels like this is my prediction for 2030. It feels like the next big thing could be set up your own recruitment agency, because realistically, you don't need much to set one up. You probably need a laptop, a phone, and kind of you're ready to get cooking. What have you seen the best leaders, some of the best people that you've sat down and interviewed and spoke with? Why do you think they've been the best when it comes to getting on the floor and working with talent?
Well, like internally, working with talent internally.
Yeah. Sorry, I forget. Talent is a recruitment word, isn't it?
You know what you just said. I think just because it's easy to do doesn't mean there's still a good percentage of people that probably will find it really hard to be successful. Like it is hard. I do think that's a pros and cons with our industry in terms of like the barriers to entry. I think you could probably argue the same for like sales. I think that is one of the coolest things about our industry. Like a quick side note, but I think it's a quite cool story. I've heard a lot of stories, and I'm sure you guys have, of how people ended up in recruitment, different walks of life. We've heard a lot of failed sports stories, loads of people that work in industry and then recruit for that industry. Like there's no linear path. And a lot of people say that they fell into recruitment, but again, this might just be me rose-tinted glasses, but I actually really like the reframe of our industry gives a lot of people an opportunity that maybe other industries wouldn't. Like I had this story the other day, it's so classic recruiter, but this person unfortunately had a very tough start to life, found themselves homeless, then found themselves in circles where they were selling drugs, basically. One of the most consistent clients, you can bet who they were, recruitment leader. Same time every week, Thursday, big session. And this recruitment leader maybe saw something in this person, and he said, and this sort of question will happen a lot for people in recruitment. They might go, Jack, have you ever thought about recruitment? One thing led to another. He then had a meal with that person, tried to get him in, got an interview, didn't end up working for that company, but then got open to recruitment, entered the recruitment industry, and then he's been in it ever since, now has his own business. So the reason why I tell that story is like, yes, okay, high ticket closing could be similar there. You could just start something remote for sure. But it doesn't mean everyone succeed. But I think that is also the cool thing about it, that a lot of people can be given an opportunity where maybe other industries couldn't give them that. If you're willing to back yourself and work hard and learn and do those things. Bit of a side note, but I just wanted to say that. In terms of the recruitment leaders that I've met, like honestly, I feel like something that sort of stands out, again, it sort of is adjacent to like vision, standards. Met a really impressive leader, really stood out to me, where I've met a lot of people that worked for this leader who have now gone out and set up on their own, and they spoke really highly of this guy. And I think what really came across and what he said to me that really stuck with me was when they were growing and they scaled to like over 100 people, he said confidently, as they were going on that growth journey, he could tell you what people's, individuals, drivers were, why they're doing the job, what their main motivators are. And I do think when it comes to getting the most out of talent, leadership, and I'm sure you guys are on this journey as well, it's something that I feel like I could improve at, is like really getting crystal clear on why is Jack showing up to work, and really not getting the surface level answers to that, but actually really understanding what motivates the team, what motivates those individuals on an individual basis. I think the best leaders will truly understand that and be willing to do the legwork to sort of dig into that and unpack it. So then they know how to then use that to that person's advantage. Like if they're saying that this is where they want to be, then that person can use those individual drivers that they've learned about that person to really make sure that it all makes sense and matches up with why they're doing what they're doing. That is personal. And it's something that I think really does take work. Like I'm sure you guys have had it, but sometimes one-on-ones with people can be difficult. You get surface level answers and you've got to try, and it is hard to like really, I think sometimes a lot of people maybe don't think about this stuff. Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? I'm just here to do a job. That's fine, but definitely in like a recruitment environment, it's hard. Like, why are you here? What are you motivated by? What actually are your drivers? And I think the best leaders have done the hard work on understanding that on an individual basis, and then they use that to best motivate that person. Again, back to incentives, and all of that matches up. And I think that definitely helps great leaders get great performances.
And you've mentioned it a few times in terms of like the self-development piece. So the best people that you've sat down with and spoke with, what are typically the soft skills, hard skills that you're like, if you can nail these, you'll probably be all right?
Yeah, I think I haven't sat down with a high performer that doesn't say they can always be learning more, always improving. I think that sort of goes hand in hand in the sort of sales recruitment industry. So skills that come to mind, I'd say personal responsibility. Is that a skill? No?
Yeah, it's like a stoic skill, isn't it? Of like, it's my responsibility. I'm going to like, ownership.
Yeah. I do that. These are in no particular order, but I think if you're always pointing the finger and that finger isn't pointing yourself, you're going to have it hard. The market's shit, that's why I'm doing this, or my manager's shit, that's why I'm this. I think you're always going to find it hard. So that definitely comes to mind. I think, is curiosity a skill?
Yeah, definitely.
That's a huge one for me. I think the sort of, that quote that we've all heard, knowledge is power, like honestly, like that is, a great recruiter is so great at gathering information, asking questions, using that information, taking that to the next conversation. Like being curious is like a big one for me. I then think listening, huge one. Something that I definitely was terrible at at the start. I was listening to, we're in the process of putting all of our podcast episodes into our sort of AI training product, due to be released soon. And I was listening to one of my earlier episodes painfully. And I used to say, yeah, that amount of times that the transcript picked up another speaker. And it was two people. The reason why I bring that up is because I always remember this lesson for the guy, Matt, who I worked with in recruitment, where I'd ask a question and then I'd jump in to sort of answer that. I'm sure you guys seen this when you're training entry level, but so listening is like huge, and the ability to ask a question and then just shut up and leave space for the other person to speak is like a massive skill that I think great recruiters get really good at, and something you can quite easily become complacent with. So I think that definitely springs to mind: ownership, curiosity, listening. I mean, resilience for sure. I think, having that ability to sort of bounce back, being able to reframe things and say, actually, okay, that is terrible, that's just happened, but it's not the end of the world, we go again. That sort of mentality is going to be needed. Then I'm giving you all the cliche ones here. Growth mindset is in there for sure. I think that's maybe part of the resilience piece. This went wrong, what can I learn from it? Again, ownership's in there. So it's all those types of bits, I'd say. I think that's why I think personal development, sales, entrepreneurship, there's a lot of crossover.
I saw you post the other day, and you mentioned it before briefly, this thing of UK recruiters wanting to break into the US. And I think that's the number one thing recruiters reach out to us for.
Really?
Yeah, to say, can you help us break into the US?
Oh, that makes sense. They want to outsource that.
They want to outsource it, and it's probably heavier lifting, I would say, than you need in the UK because of connection rates and stuff. But what have you seen from... Well, number one, do you think that works? Like to say, like, let's just focus just on the US?
Yeah, 100% much, yeah.
Okay, so then what do you think people need to do and understand to make that happen?
The reason why I say 100% works is I've just seen enough evidence now, or enough people. I'm seeing more and more recruitment companies that are based in the UK that just do the US. So like, there's enough evidence there to go, if you get this right, it can definitely work. I think a lot of people do view it as, again, like a silver bullet on all their problems. It isn't quite that. I think the perfect way to frame it for anyone listening is it's just as hard as the UK market or any other market, but the financial return can be literally like 5x. The perfect example, like an example here would be if I place an SDR into your business, let's just say the basic salary is 30K. If I do the exact same skill set in a particular state in the US, that might be $50,000, $70,000, 20% of 30K, 20% of 50K. You can do the maths. But I think a lot of people have experienced same skill set, working just as hard, but the end financial return is like much larger. So I think that's why there's a lot of pull there. There's other factors into that, which is there's always different stats floating around, but consistently you'll probably hear that there's maybe like 30,000 recruitment agencies in the UK. I think there's less recruitment agencies in the whole of US. If you think population size of US versus population size of UK recruitment agencies, you can see why people may feel like it's not as competitive. So there's a few like pulls there, and then also staffing. It's viewed differently over there from the conversations that I've had in terms of it being a bit more respectable. I don't think the perception is lads or girls from Essex that don't have many brain cells working in recruitment and like the perception that you said earlier. So I think that there's like just a few different bits there that I think also make it appealing for people that have always done the UK market, where margins are getting squeezed, it's competitive than ever. Even though how hard they work with all these things, doing the right thing, they're still banded with all these people that ruin it for them and those bits. In terms of like go to market over there, I think the big thing that I see is sort of built adjacent to like volume is people like sort of dabble with it. I think people that really make the US work is like they go all in on it. That's definitely what I've seen time and time again. So you might, I don't know if you've had this, you might have UK recruitment agencies that do the UK market and, yeah, guys, can you just help us break into the US? We're going to keep doing this. And like, can you just help us like just start building some of that? I do think if you're going to go to the US, then you need to have a person or people that are entirely focused on that, and they say no to business that isn't the US, or if that's their end goal. Then I think the other bits that matter, there's a lot of stuff that's the same. Again, volume is going to be important. The amount of conversations you're having, then you're getting information, then you can use that information to go to market, all that sort of stuff. So I think inputs are going to just be important. Actually doing the recruitment stuff is going to be very similar. Where UK, we're getting a bit particular here, but typically what people will say to me is, in the US, there's less agencies, that's a fact, but there's a lot more like just overall larger organizations, which means that we have a meeting, might work with a US staffing firm that does all their recruitment, from salespeople to your admin person, like they just do everything. So maybe deemed as more like generalist, whereas part of UK recruiters, because it's so competitive, part of their differentiator will be, Jack, all I do is speak to SDRs with 2 years experience in Manchester. Like that's all I do every single day, every single week. That's what I'm building my network with. Like that's become a bit of like, I know the best people. So taking that type of approach to the US, that isn't typical. So what that means is that can almost be like a complete, like some people might have experienced go, oh my God, that's amazing. Like you're a specialist. Like you would probably just never have that in the UK. So I think having that niche goes a long way. What I've also consistently heard is getting over there can have a big impact. I think that can, again, back to relationships. But I think getting over there, going to conferences, meeting people that you've spoken to face to face, that can really accelerate things. Like I've sat down with a lot of people over the last 6 months where some of their biggest wins have come from going to industry conferences, meeting people face to face, and then doing all of that sort of stuff. And then off the back of that, it's accelerated conversations with people. Maybe it just shows like intent. Oh, this isn't just another UK recruiter trying to work the US. Like they're here, they're over. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's a bit of commitment there that they've gone over. So honestly, there's a lot of the same stuff, and then you have to work to the cultural nuances. There are cultural nuances, but again, going over there, you can understand the cultural nuances better, especially if you start meeting people in maybe the states that you end up focusing on. Like you can go to the most popular barbecue places, you can speak to people about that and like pick up on those bits. So yeah, I'm not surprised a lot of people are being like, it's really appealing for a lot of people for those sort of first couple of reasons that I said. But I think if you're putting all that hard work in and then you're seeing the financial return, like that's just a big motivator for people. But a lot of the go-to-market stuff, I'd say, is fairly similar from my conversations for the most part.
This has been incredible, Hishem. I think there's been so many takeaways, and I think that anybody that's, even if you're working in recruitment, like you're not even thinking about like setting up your own agency, I think there's so many lessons to take away from this. So thank you so much. If people want to get in contact, listen to you, work with you, how do they find you?
Best place, LinkedIn, Hishem Azzouz. And then if you are a podcast listener and want to learn how recruitment entrepreneurs or high-performing recruiters achieve what they've achieved, then you can listen to my podcast, which is called the Recruitment Mentors Podcast.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome.